what excites people about water purifier? What are the top three things that would enable people to make a decision of buying a water purifier, and all of these things, right? And for a more evolved product, let's say the product is at a more evolved stage, maybe you have example of similar products and all of that where you want to do case studies and all of this, right? So understanding which research design supports your problem statement is the first step in solving a research problem, in my view. And then you can go with the approaches based on the problem statement or the solutions, or the data points that you're looking at, right? So the broadly five types of research design that especially we use in corporate, right? One is phenomenology, ethnography, grounded theory, case study, and narrative research. Narrative research is historically not very popular, but considering the level of social media narratives that people are able to build, and considering the level of content in today's world, narrative research has become an important part of inequality research today, right? So these broadly cover the research designs. Approaches to research can be multiple times, right? I mean, you can launch a quantitative survey, qualitative survey, all of these things. But in my view, I think the top five that you see would broadly cover for the different types of outputs that you trying to bring from research, right? So I'll briefly talk about each of them. So interviews is a very straightforward thing. I don't think I need to dive deep on that. Focus group discussion, like all of us understand, is getting a group of people to discuss about the topic that you want them to discuss, so that you capture insights and inputs of their thought process and how they perceive things and all of that, right? I think very important step in a focus group discussion is obviously to ensure diversity of thought, number one. And number two, if you're targeting 10 people from 10 different segments of your target segment, then the group discussion doesn't really give an output. Unless you have slightly more uniformized group of target segment, focus group discussions generally lead to more of a chaos and individual opinion being the group's opinion and all of that. Unless you do it with a similar set of target groups. Right, sentence completion and word association is a very interesting part of market research, right? Where we ask people what comes to your mind when you think of water, right? So what comes to your mind when you think of pure drinking water? A lot of people end up saying Bisleri, right? So it's a very strong point that people are associating certain brands, certain bottled water as a category with pure water. So these kind of things tells you a lot about how people perceive things and how your marketing campaigns and everything needs to be aligned with the way that people perceive things. Observation is a very straightforward way, right? Where you make notes of how people respond and react to different things, right? Not a lot of that can be quantified in a lot of cases, but those insights are powerful in itself for you to see how the commonality of observations are evolving for you to take a decision. Surveys is again straightforward, right? I think the last two which I've highlighted in yellow is for a very specific reason that these are evolving today with a lot of tech capabilities and all of that coming in. But I think these are, in my view, are at a very nascent stage, but can be very powerful, right? For example, there is this startup called Anthropic. There are a couple of other things happening in the San Francisco Bay Area where they track your eyes of how your eyes are moving in response to an ad, or how your eyes are moving when a product is shown, right? Uh, Computer vision aided technology which helps capture how people emotions is getting is changing based on the images being shown or the experiences being shown, right? So that's one way of research which is slightly in the evolving phase. Social media listening, I think, is a little more evolved than let's say computer vision. So social media listening is about, there are a lot of algorithms today to track sentiment of any given keyword, right? For example, if there's an election happening, you can type different political party name and understand how different political parties are being perceived on an average on different platforms. I think Twitter is a very powerful tool which enables a lot of integrations, APIs. Twitter has very beautiful API structure which enables integrations with different tools where you can track how different keywords sentiment is moving over within minutes, not even hours, within minutes of different events happening and all of that, right? So These are the approaches. These are the approaches to research, and these are the research designs that people can follow. I will run through each of the research design and try to broadly help how each of the research designs and which approach suits in all of them, and an example, and what kind of products or services fits best into that. Right. First is phenomenology. Right. So, like the word suggests, it is fundamentally about how people experience certain things, right? How people center their experience about a product or service around few aspects of it, right? So uh, I think the output of this comes it because let's say you show an item X to 100 people. These 100 people would perceive in different way, experience this thing in different way. Only when you capture their experiences through interviews or observations is when you say that okay, these are the top 5 things that are forming in people's mind when they're looking at this product or service, right? I each of this I wanted to run you with a very quick example of a water purifier company, right? So that everybody is aware of the product, right? So, for example, let's say water purifier company wants to understand how the problem statement is, let's say, how people perceive a water purifier. People who have not used a water purifier earlier, right? So there will be n number of people who haven't used the water purifier earlier. There might be group of people who are living in very affluent community, people who might be living in not so well-to-do sections of the society, and all of those things, right? So it is very important for us to identify one section and capture their experiences into bulleted points, because if when you do it with multiple diverse set of people, their experiences will be different, and you will not be able to get the top 5 experiences that people are getting from your product, right? So let a small group of people, right, use the purifier a few times, right? If so this would be step one, and the step two is someone might say that, oh, this is very tasty, right? That's one part of the experience. Someone might say, oh, I'm feeling confident because I know that this would not harm my health, right? Health could be another. Someone might say, oh, if I have it in my house, maybe it's a status symbol that I care about health and hygiene, so it's a status symbol, right? So people are experiencing the same product in a different way: taste, health, status. Someone might just say that maybe it's good for my long-term health because I'm consuming less of fluorine, and all of these things, right? So it's a different experiences that come out of this. Documenting these common experiences is what matters in this, right? So where is this suitable? I think that's very important, right? So a lot of products or services, when you sell them, it is you don't get people to experience. For example, if I am buying a new soap which I've never used, I don't get to experience the soap and then buy it. I only get to experience the outside cover design, maybe to some extent ingredients and all of that. But I don't get to experience soap. That's not where this works, because these are the experiences that you're capturing. So the experience doesn't become part of the buying process. Only in products or services where decisions are made dependent on the usage of product. Right. For example, let's take a television, for example. Right? Television, people go to the television shop, look at the television and experience the sound, experience the picture quality, and then buy it. Those are the cases where it helps to understand what are the top parameters that people would look at a television for. Right. So this is phenomenology, and I'll jump into ethnography. Right. It's very interesting. I think some of the beautiful cases that have done very well because of ethnography is Gillette in India. When they were launching the razors, they immersed themselves into the rural villages and understood what the problems are. They figured out that the shaving kits, which had the fundamental requirement of running water, could not be launched into India because there was no running water existing in the village. So they had to modify their product and all of that. So I think that was one beautiful example that came out of ethnographic study. But fundamentally, what ethnography means is that the researchers immerse themselves in the culture uh, of the user group that they're targeting, and thus they gain that insights of how they live, what are the problem statements that they're facing, and how this product should be aimed at solving those problems. Right. So and the ways and means to approach that problem statement in a system that they're accustomed to. Right. It the aim of the ethnographic study is not to just to get data and say that 70% of the people have running water or no running water, etc. I think most important part of the ethnographic study is to uncover the smaller game changers which can help your product to be very, very successful. Right. For example, again, let's take a water purifier as an example, right? So if a water purifier company wants to understand consumer segment and do an ethnographic study, what they would do is they would definitely spend a lot of time with the target segment of users that they want to target, right? And understand their lifestyle in detail, right? For example, are they very concerned about their power consumption, or is it about tank size because they don't always have the access to electricity, or is the maintenance cost because they can probably buy a machine with 10 or 15,000 ones, but they can't afford to keep 3,000 or 4,000 level for this every year, right? So these are the kind of things that they immerse themselves with the target audience and understand what matters to them in the for the thing that you're trying to offer to them, right? So that's how you come up with some key insight. uh, Ethnography is primarily observation dependent. It's not about asking them and collecting data. The second way that you get insights from ethnographic studies of these in-depth interviews to have a fair insight on how they perceive different things, how they what their problem solve statements look like, and all of that. FGDs again with a uniform group gives you a very strong insights on how what value propositions your product has to offer, right? So the point comes is when is an ethnographic study suitable, right? Ethnography is very, very suitable not at a product market fit or product launch stage, because it is a very broad problem at that stage. Ethnography is very suitable when you want to target a specific set of users. For example, let's say you are a water purifier company and you're very successful with families, right? Families buy your product, but bachelors or students or people who have recently graduated and not yet married, they're, let's say they're not very keen on using a water purifier. So you spend time with them and understand what their problem statements are, what their concerns are about buying a water purifier, and try to address them through your product offerings, your marketing messages, and all of that. So for a new segment, ethnography works very well. Right. So the next methodology that I want to cover is grounded theory. Right. So a lot of times in marketing, you know that something is happening, right? For example, let's say you know that uh, people who are above 35 years are buying your product, right? But you don't know why, right? Or let's say, example, new migrants into the city are buying your product and you don't know why, uh, right? Or let's say people who have bought a television in the last 6 months are uh, buying water purifier in the present time. So you want to understand the reason of why a TV purchase and a water purifier purchase are related. Right? That's where you uh, try to have a go hit the ground with zero hypothesis, right? And go with an open mind, try to understand why there is correlation between two events, and then come up with conclusion based on your study and responses, rather than going with the hypothesis and trying to validate, right? It's a behavioral understanding of the consumer which you can strategically leverage to make more sense. If there is a solid theory of why people who have purchased the television in the last 6 months are buying water purifier now, then it makes a very solid use case for you to partner with stores who are selling television and run CRM campaigns for water purifiers and a lot of other things which you can strategically partner and piggyback on their distribution channel and all of this, right? So that's grounded theory. So grounded theory, unlike the other two, which are very observational focus, unless phenomenology and ethnography, it's a very observational focus where you have to immerse or spend time with the audience and understand why. Grounded theory can very well be done with only with service, without having to. Uh, Sorry, is that a question?
One packet done.
Hello. Dr. Nirmal, there seems to be a question. Yeah. So unlike ethnography or phenomenology, you don't need to observe so much and make qualitative inference. You can very well rely on surveys here because there's an established process. There is an established fact that you're looking for. And okay. So that's why survey works here, and interviews also because you know that the consumer is doing two things in correlation, and you just want to understand why and all of these things. So interviews also works very well here. The reason why sentence completion and word association work in very well here is because when you say certain thing and when people associate that with a certain emotion or certain word, you understand why the correlation exists between two parameters. Let's take an example. Right? Let's say residents of gated communities prefer water cans to water wheels. Let's say that's the data point that you have, and you want to understand the reason, right? So since it's a straightforward question, you can conduct an open-ended study where you launch a survey to understand reason, right? Document your observations, and then you can. It's like a very qual quant kind of study, right? Where you classify the observations, classify the reasons stated by people, and come up with top 5 reasons, right? So that's how grounded theory works. Uh, so, like I said, grounded theory is again not for product launches or anything of that sort. Grounded theory works perfectly well when you know that something is happening, consumers are behaving in certain way, which you want to understand the reasons so that you can strategically make things better for them. Right? The fourth methodology that I have in mind is a case study. Right? Case study is when you have solid facts, data, numbers, right, which to back a certain thing which has happened in the past, right, and thereby getting insights from there. So you always don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? For example, if you're launching a new brand in any product segment, you don't always need to reinvent the wheel. There are a number of things that have happened in the past. You can pick insights from there and validate those insights and see if that works for your brand as well. For example, let's say you're launching a beauty premium product, uh, but the premium beauty product, right? So beauty product as a segment always existed. All that you need to see is how premium customers uh, kind of thought process may be slightly different from the generic set of customers. So you might pick up a case study of a successful beauty brand and understand how to tweak that whole campaign or the whole marketing exercise or the whole GTM exercise to your kind of audience, right? Survey works very beautiful in case studies because you have a problem statement, you have examples, you have things that you want to solve for. You know what are the top key messaging parameters that the other product or service in the case has used. So you pick up, for example, I'll again go back to water purifier example, right? Suppose there's a water purifier launch that you want to do, right? So pick up a case of very successful purifier company which has done a very successful brand launch, or any other health and hygiene product, right? Which which is about health and hygiene, and where people have tried to use that product for health and hygiene, right? So then you know from that case or from that study on what top 5 things have worked for them. Like, did they brand themselves as hygiene product? Did they brand themselves as long-term health product, right? Or did they brand themselves as a status symbol product, or were they focusing on the solution? Were they focusing on the problem? Are they using more of a carrot approach? Are they using a stick approach and saying that if you don't use this, you might face hospitals, right? So things like that help you understand what are the top 5 things that they've done. But doesn't mean that you have to replicate the same strategy because you know your target group very well, and you have to see if the same parameters, same messaging, same USPs work for your target segment. You tweak around it, and you identify your set, and then you kind of have an insight of what you want to kind of position, how you want to position your brand, how you want to position your USP and all. So that's a case study method where you pick up things from existing successful stuff that happened and kind of tweak it to make it suitable for your brand, right? like I said, this case study only works if you have a solid case, right? So uh, let's say you're doing French cookies in India, right? You don't have a case study because there is nothing similar which happened at a large scale in India. There may be small bakeries, but not at large scale. So you can't do a case study. You might have to resort to a ethnography or phenomenal based study and all of that. So a case study works when you have a solid market for the product or service that you're uh, selling. Right. The last part is narrative research, right? Like I said earlier, it was not a very popular thing, but with content being powerful and being the key to marketing or key to any business development decisions, this narrative research becomes very powerful. Uh, so the way it works is when you give a product or service to people, everybody associate that with different meanings based on their experience, right? Let's take a very simple example of a coffee, right? Uh, how do you promote a coffee brand? What is the narrative that you can uh, you can create a narrative that coffee is just a drink which you drink and move on. It's just a beverage that you drink and move on. Or you can give a narrative that coffee is actually enabling you to give 2x better at work. So it's worth spending 100 rupees on coffee. Or you can give a narrative that coffee is helping you to relax and spend more time with friends. So it's 100 rupees or 150 rupees for coffee is still a good investment. So the narrative that you build around your brand is very important in ensuring that your brand is successful. Right. So the narrative research focuses on that to understand what meaning people assign to their experiences. The experience of drinking coffee in a systematic way is very straightforward, but the narrative that you build around how you want people to experience is what makes, because you can people have one or two things on top of their mind here, and you can very powerful tool because when you say let's say coffee, so people can just say, oh, a beverage which helps me be productive. People may say, oh, socialization, right? So those kind of word associations tells you how people associate a product or a brand with different value propositions for themselves, right? Social media listening, because people are talking about your product or your brands, and you want to, and like I said, there are a lot of APIs, a lot of tech integrations which can be done to get synthesized data around different keywords, right? So maybe that itself is a very powerful tool, social media as a thing, because it tells you how people are talking about your brand. Or when you say coffee, are people talking about it in a social setting, or are people talking about it as a family get together drink, or people talking about it as just another beverage that they want to drink to get going, right? So that social media listening is very powerful because it tells you how an average user is perceiving your brand or product, the USP that they're associating with, right? So again, if I have to explain this with the water purifier example, right? Uh, Identify what is the meaning that people are giving to the water purifier. You tell them water purifier, identify what they're associating with it with uh, at the very core. Is it long-term health, or is it avoiding a stomach upset, or is it about status symbol at home because it is in the kitchen and all of that stuff, right? So you identify what is the top USP. Do evaluate if each narrative is good enough for your own campaign. For example, certain narratives you might want to avoid because it doesn't help your brand perform well in the market in the long term. So you generally avoid such narratives and kind of evaluate the effectiveness of the narratives that you shortlist and take a stage. That this is going to be the narrative of the product, right? So this is very powerful in product market fit. PMF stands for product market fit. When you're launching a new product, evaluating if a product has the right fit in the market is very important. So in that stage, it is very powerful because it helps you put your product in the right positioning, right USP in the user. Yeah. So I think that's it from my end. I think I've been a little quick, but I'll be glad to take any questions that you might have.
Thank you for your enlightening presentation, sir. A few questions are being put up in the chat box. Can ethnography be used in various disciplines?
Various?
Disciplines, sir.
I'd like a little elaboration on that. What exactly do you mean by different disciplines?
Maybe marketing, finance, like that. Different disciplines are there, no, sir? Can ethnography can be used in different disciplines? They're asking.
Right. So,
Yes.
like I said, I think ethnography is a very powerful tool when you want to understand how consumers use your product and what are the top important things for them, right? So it can be used at product launch stage. It can be used when you're trying to target new segment of users and all of that. So that's very powerful. And when it comes to different products and services, I think ethnography fits well with a lot of products and services, right? If it can be financial product, it could be a consumer product, it could be a healthcare product, right? So I think fits in broad category of products and suits very well when you're targeting new segment of users.
Thank you so much, sir. So one more question is also there. What are the challenges associated with the grounded theory? What are the challenges?
Understood. See, I think the very fundamental thing with grounded theory is unless you go with an open mind, unless you have a clear cut problem statement, right, that you want to solve for, and unless you observe a phenomena which is already happening, that, like I said, people buying TVs are likely to buy water purifiers in the next 6 months, right? Unless you have a solid correlation or phenomena that you're observing and want to deep dive on the reasons for that, and unless you go with an open-ended way into the market, you're not going to get the answer, right? So that's the fundamental challenge with grounded theory. But if you have a output and you're looking for the reason, I think grounded theory works brilliantly well.
Thank you so much, sir. Sir, then next question is, how are findings presented in a case study report?
Right. So in a case study, typically you identify what has worked well for the other brand or product or whatever you're taking as a case, right? You create the top 5 or top 10 things that have worked for them in each of the segments. For example, what has worked, or top 3 messaging things that have worked in their marketing messages that have worked for them, right? What are the top 3 positioning that have worked for them? What are the user segments that have worked for them, right? You make a matrix of each of the parameters, what top 4 things work for them. And then from that matrix, you run your own experiments on what will work for you and what will not work for you based on your own target segment and kind of product capabilities also to some extent that your product has. And pick up things that are going to still pick up and discard things that you're not going to. So this is how you make a matrix, and this is how you present findings of what are you going to pick up from that case and what you're not going to pick up from that case.
So one more question is also about case study research. What is the process of analyzing data in case study research?
Right. Like I said, right now the process is very similar, right? You take top 4 5 parameters that you want to evaluate on that you're looking to solve for. Everybody might have different problem sets that they're looking to solve for. For example, if I want to solve for messaging, marketing messaging, and if I want to solve for whether I want to target middle income group or higher income groups or lower income groups, my target group based on income, and my target group based on age, and all of these things, you figure out what has worked for the product or service that you're taking as an example in the case, right? Create the matrix and validate that matrix with, for example, let's say you figure out that other brand of water purifier has worked very well in middle income groups above 35 years of age, right? So you run a survey or you run an interview with your target sample saying that my product is cheaper, right? My product is will last only for 5 years, whereas that product lasted for 10 years, but my product is 1/3 the price, right? Will you still go ahead and buy my product, or will you go for the other product which is there in the market? So you run a sample with this survey or interview kind of thing with this target group, and understand if the same target group can work for you as a tech market, or you say that no, this is not going to work for me. I would have to identify different targets, for instance.
Okay, sir. Sir, then how data is collected in ethnography, sir?
Okay, interesting question. I think ethnography itself does not have a quantitative model, right? So you don't say that 7 people have running water in their homes. That's not you do how you do ethnography. The way that you do ethnography is listing out the key problems or the key solutions that you want to offer, or your key observations, and give a validity score on that. For example, if I'm going to a rural village with the biscuits as a product, the cookies, biscuits that we use, right? Spend time with there and understand price sensitivity. So one point that I'll make, that people are always asking for price and always looking for the number of units in that packet. Whereas in cities, it's very common to just go by the taste of what you like. Whereas in low income groups, they see how many 10 biscuits for 10 rupees or 12 biscuits for 10 rupees. Right? You make things like this of price sensitivity could be one thing, right? The ability to carry it can be other thing, because people are going into the fields and all of this. So you make things like that, and by the end of your study of spending, so first 5 or 10 days or whatever, first half of the period, you make list of things that you want to things that are important for this group, and then you give, and then next half of the research period, you give scores to how important it is for that segment of research.
Thank you, sir. And one more last question is there in the chat box, sir. How a qualitative research can be conducted using ethnographic approach, sir?
Uh, See, I think qualitative research, ethnography, you're not essentially trying to answer a single question, right? Ethnography is not about getting answers, it is about immersing yourself in the lifestyle of your target users and understanding what is important for them and what matters for them to make a good sale of your product or service, right? So, qualitatively, once you have a hypothesis, if I may say so, right? Once you have a hypothesis of what can work, you can use interviews and all of that to validate that. But before that, I think more than qualitative research or kind of documenting that, it's about you understanding what matters and to what extent each of those item matters most.
Thank you, sir. Participants are requested to, unmute yourself and put forth your queries in the forum.
Hello, sir. Am I audible?
Yeah. I think I'm more comfortable being addressed as Krishna or Sunny. But
Yeah. So I would like to know, are the findings of the qualitative research design trustworthy compared to the quantitative research approach?
Dr. This, there is a lot of background noise. I'm not able to comprehend it.
Just, I just post this into the chat
Yeah.
box.
Okay. The findings of trustworthy. I think that's a very interesting question. I mean, people ask this all the time, especially in a corporate setup, because you are investing money based on the decision that have come out. But my approach has been, and a lot of successful marketing leaders that I have seen, is that qualitative research is the base for your quantitative research. Your qualitative research comes up with these are the top 10 USPs that a product can go to the market with, or your qualitative research tells that these are the top 10 things that matter to a consumer when he or she is buying that product, right? If I have to tell an example of a chocolate, right? The qualitative research teams comes and tells that taste matters, price matters, right? Your health impact of it matters. If you say it contains more protein, people are more likely to buy and all of these things, right? They say that different consumer segments for let's say in the urban areas, the health is a parameter that people look into, and rural areas may not. These are the kind of things that qualitative research comes and tells, and quantitative research role comes in the place where they validate that with data, saying that okay, you're right. 72% of the users said that the taste matters more than health to them, or vice versa, right? One is validation of those insights, and second thing is to understand at each consumer segment level what importance that each parameter has. So I think a combination of this is what works best, at least in the when allocating budgets and all of that.
Thank you, sir.
Participants, in case of any queries, kindly put forth your queries in the forum. Either you can unmute yourself and you can tell your queries, or you can post it in the chat box.
I think not just if anybody wants to bring up any discussion, interesting discussions from their own experiences also, I think it's a good forum for the next 10 minutes.
Forum is open for discussion. I think participants, forum is open for discussion. Kindly put forth your queries. Sir, one more is been put up in the chat box. What is the process of analyzing data in case study research, sir?
I think I've answered this, but I'll answer this again, right? Identification of top 5 or 10 things in each category that has worked for the example case that you're looking at, right? And then running your own qualitative and quantitative studies to see if that works for you or not. So you either pick that thing from that case that you're analyzing, saying that hey, 35 years plus middle income group work for that company that I'm taking as a case, so it works for me also, or you eliminate that, right? So you pick multiple parameters like this and keep this is a process. You pick the parameters, you work what combinations or how each of them work for you or it does not work for you, and you eliminate them or pick them up from that.
Sir, then what are the challenges associated with the grounded theories?
I think I'm getting the same question. I think I just answered the same question. I think the same questions are coming up. As in, maybe you're reading out the same question again. But okay, I'll tell you again. So just in case the person missed it, grounded theory works very well only when you have when you have a scenario which is happening in your business on how consumers are behaving, and you want to kind of look at the reason for that. So one, you need to have a strong data point that something is happening. You would not have a reason of why that is happening, right? And then you go out into the market with an open thought process and no hypothesis in mind already, and then analyze why that is happening. And, find that association of two different things, or why a particular phenomenon is happening. For example, if all your consumers are people who have bought a TV in the last 6 months, that is a phenomenon which is happening. You find out the reason for that is an open mind and understand, and then strategically use that to your convenience for your business.
Sir, then one more question, sir. How do you deal with bias while doing qualitative research
Very nice. Very interesting question. I think one is a conscious bias and one is an unconscious bias that the respondent always gives and asking a qualitative research, right? For example, let's say people perceive some things as good to say it out in the market, and people are afraid of saying things out in the market, right? For example, let's take an apparel brand. Let's say you put one image of a very attractive person wearing that clothes and an average looking person wearing that clothes, right? So people are afraid to say that the conscious bias is that people are afraid to say that I find it attractive on the attractive person because they feel that I'm judging this person. That's a conscious bias that people always give out in qualitative research, where they're not very comfortable saying out their opinions, right, on different things, right? So that's one. Or for example, I mean, a very interesting thing that happens is, let's say the dishwashing soaps, right? The ads work brilliantly when they show women in it, but if you ask a lot of people out, they're not afraid to admit that they would perceive some soap as better when a woman is in that, because they feel that they're being gender biased, which they don't want to tell it to a researcher. right? So that's a conscious bias that comes out, conscious lie that comes out in the research. The unconscious things that come out is, if I were to ask someone, do you love shoes of red color or blue color, right? They don't have a clear view in their mind, right? Because they haven't experienced both the colors, they haven't seen it, they haven't imagined themselves in both of these colors. So they just say red or blue, whatever comes on top of them. And this is the unconscious bias that happens in research. The way to eliminate the conscious bias is making people comfortable with the fact that it is a research and their responses are going to be anonymized and all of that, so that they're comfortable speaking out about the preferences in research, as in preferences of the product or service that you're doing research for, right? And the way to avoid unconscious bias is, there's no solid way, I mean, there's no fixed way, is just to increase the level of sampling that you're doing, because unconscious is something unconscious. And the second way is to make your questions a little more specific, a little more relatable to the people. If you ask me if I like a red shoe or blue shoe, I wouldn't have an answer on top of my mind, right? So if you ask me, do you prefer a shoe in dark color or do you prefer it to be slightly lighter, then maybe I'll have an answer. So making questions a little more generic, a little more actionable is something that you prevent unconscious bias.
Sir, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I think chat box, most all the questions have been read, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you,
Thank you
Dr.
so
Vijay.
much.
It was a brilliant session. Thanks
Yeah,
for
thank you, sir, for enlightening us with your words of wisdom, and to more, and to make us to explore the various research designs. First and foremost, I start giving glory to the Almighty God for making today's session a grand success. I would like to extend our gratitude to our chief guest, who, despite of his busy schedule, has found time to grace this occasion. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation and gracing the occasion, sir. We are really honored to have you amongst us, sir. My heartfelt thanks are due to Dr. Annie Stephen, Head, Department of Professional Accounting and Finance, Mr. Jagadish, Coordinator, Faculty Development Program Coordinators, and all the faculty members of the department for their uninstincted support for this program. I thank all the distinguished invitees who present here for gracing the occasion by accepting our invitation. Once again, I thank you all for your kind attention.
Thanks, Oscar.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.